Several famous people have experienced a lot of tragedies. Some celebrities have had several family members die in terrible ways, while others have experienced a series of personal illnesses and injuries. One famous singer lost 3 of her family members in a horrific shooting. This list of famous people who have been surrounded by tragedy is loosely ranked by fame and popularity.
Kate saw it. She said, "Oh my God, it's the best thing I've ever done." She started crying.
Kelsey Grammar. In 1968, when Kelsey Grammar was only 13 years old, his father, Frank, was shot and killed outside their home. Later, in 1975, his 18-year-old sister, Karen, was kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered by a man named Freddie Glenn. Just 5 years after that, in 1980, Kelsey's twin half-brothers, Billy and Stephen, tragically died in a scuba diving accident near St. Thomas. In 2001, another tragedy struck when his close friend, David Angel, was on American Airlines Flight 11, which crashed into the World Trade Center during the 9/11 attacks. Jennifer Hudson. In 2008, Jennifer Hudson faced a heartbreaking tragedy when her mother, Darnell Donnerson, 57, and her brother, Jason, 29, were shot and killed by her estranged brother-in-law, William Balfour. Her 7-year-old nephew, Julian, was reported missing but was found 3 days later, also killed by multiple gunshot wounds. In 2012, Balfour was convicted and sentenced to 3 life terms in prison without the possibility of parole. Marlon Brando. In May 1990, Marlon Brando's son, Christian, shot and killed Dag Drolet, the boyfriend of his pregnant half-sister, Cheyenne. Christian pleaded guilty to manslaughter and served 5 years in prison. During the trial, Cheyenne attempted suicide twice, struggling deeply with the events. Tragically, in 1995, after losing custody of her son, Tukey, Cheyenne took her own life by hanging at just 25 years old. Sophia Vergara. Sophia Vergara, star of Modern Family, has faced many difficult challenges in her life. In 1998, her brother Rafael was tragically murdered in Bogotá. Just 2 years later, in 2000, Sophia was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. She underwent iodine radiation therapy and thankfully made a full recovery. In 2011, her younger brother Julio struggled with long-term drug addiction and was deported to Colombia following an arrest in the United States. Roy Orbison. In 1966, Roy Orbison's life was shattered when his wife, Claudette Frady, was killed in a tragic motorcycle accident. She was struck by a semi-truck and died instantly. Just 2 years later, another devastating blow came when his house caught fire, claiming the lives of 2 of his 3 sons. In 1973, Orbison faced yet another tragedy when his older brother, Grady, was killed in a car accident while on his way to spend Thanksgiving with Roy. Marie Osmond. In 1999, Marie Osmond courageously shared that struggled with severe postpartum depression after the birth of her son, Matthew. In 2007, she was deeply saddened by the death of her father, George Osmond, who had 9 children and 55 grandchildren. Tragically, in 2010, Osmond faced the unimaginable loss of her son, Michael, who took his own life at the age of 18 by jumping from an 8th-floor window. Ernest Hemingway. In 1928, when Ernest Hemingway was just 24 years old, he received the heartbreaking news that his father, Clarence, had taken his own life by shooting himself. Later, in 1961, Hemingway himself tragically followed a similar path, committing suicide with a gunshot to the head. In 1966, his sister Ursula, who had battled cancer and depression for years, also took her life, overdosing on drugs. Then, in 1982, his youngest brother, Lester, who had discovered their father's body years earlier, also ended his life by suicide. The tragedies continued when, in 1996, Hemingway's granddaughter, Margot, was found dead from a phenobarbital overdose, adding another deep sorrow to the family's history. Kanye West. In 2002, Kanye West was involved in a near-fatal car accident that left him with a shattered jaw. Despite the severity of his injuries, he survived and later used his experience to fuel his music. Then in 2007, West faced an unimaginable tragedy when his mother, Donda West, passed away suddenly after complications from plastic surgery. Reflecting on the loss, West described it as like losing an arm and a leg and trying to walk through that, highlighting the deep pain and emptiness he felt from her passing. Anna Nicole Smith. In 1995, Anna Nicole Smith became a widow at just 27 years old when her husband, J. Howard Marshall Sexth, passed away. 11 years later, in 2006, her 20-year-old son, Daniel Smith, tragically died from a drug overdose. Sadly, less than a year later, on February 8, 2007, Anna Nicole Smith herself passed away from a drug overdose, marking a heartbreaking end to a life filled with deep, personal losses. Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee's life was marked by profound tragedy. His father, the legendary martial artist Bruce Lee, died suddenly on July 20, 1973 at the age of 32. His death was ruled as death by misadventure, caused by an acute cerebral edema. Brandon's life was also cut short when on March 31, 1993, at the age of 28, he was accidentally killed on the set of the film The Crow. A prop gun misfired, tragically taking his life, just as he was following in his father's footsteps. John F. Kennedy, Jr. John F. Kennedy, Jr. was no stranger to tragedy. His father, President John F. Kennedy, was assassinated on November 22, 1963, a devastating event that changed the course of history. 5 years later, on June 6, 1968, his uncle, Robert Kennedy, was also assassinated. In 1974, his cousin, David Kennedy, tragically passed away at the age of 28 from a drug overdose involving cocaine, Demerol, and Mellaril. Then, in 1997, another cousin, Michael Kennedy, died in a skiing accident at 39. Finally, on July 16, 1999, John F. Kennedy Jr. himself died in a plane crash, along with his wife, Carolyn Jean Bissett, adding yet another sorrowful chapter to the family's history of loss. Curtis Mayfield. Soul musician Curtis Mayfield endured immense hardship later in life. In 1990, he was paralyzed from the neck down when a lighting rig fell on him during a concert. Despite this devastating injury, Mayfield continued to make music, showing incredible resilience. In 1998, his right leg was amputated due to complications from diabetes. Sadly, less than a year later, Curtis Mayfield passed away, marking the end of a life filled with both musical brilliance and personal struggles. How would you attempt to recover from a personal tragedy? Share your thoughts in the comments section.